Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Glad to share another special moment in time in our beautiful lives. So, if you'd like, you could put in the chat where you're calling in from. I'm always grateful to connect through space and time. It's super fun to be together here. So, I'm going to open my screen share. So, welcome to our bi monthly expansion call. And of course, our theme is expansion, and we're going to be using some neuroscience and understanding. Welcome, Carolyn. Understanding about how our brains contribute to both our well being and also how we can expand upon that. So, let's jump right in. We're going to start with an overview. So our intention is expansion, and we want to then get specific about what we would like to expand. We're going to assess where we are currently. We're going to put in a certain context and then an application. We're going to reflect on how that has created a shift. And then we're going to kind of seal it in with an affirmation of our personal empowerment and what we can do. So let's always start off with the why, right? What brought you here today? Why are you here? And what would you like to expand in your life? What we know through brain research is that when we get specific and we make a declaration of what it is that we desire, it then tells our conscious and unconscious mind what to pay attention to. So, another way to look at it is what process are you wanting to amplify or move forward in your life? What would you like to grow or increase? And of course, every call it might be different. Sometimes we wake up in the morning and we might want to increase our sense of presence and calm. We might want to increase our motivation. We might want to increase our learning. So, expansion to me can be this ever evolving creative process in life. So, take a moment and clarify what you would like to focus on in your life as far as expansion goes. And so, why are you here? What would you like to expand in your life? And as you're going through your mental and emotional and physical awareness around that, I'm going to invite us to take our intention into what I call our initial assessment. If anyone knows me, they know I like before and afters, right? That lets us know where we've been and how we're having the transformation we desire. So, what I'd love for you to do with a piece of paper or on your tablet or phone is to check in with yourself before we start our journey here together of where am I right now, right? So, we could do life force, energy, and spirit. Where do we feel in that, right? How does it look for us, or what does it sound like? What are we saying to ourselves? Then your mental faculties, your ability to focus and process and connect and utilize our mental faculties. Then emotions, how are you feeling today? Where are you? And then how does your body, right? The body is what's having the lived experience. So zero is sort of like neutral, right? Negative, zero to negative is you're really feeling depleted, less than, needing to access some resources. And then, of course, there's that expansion part above. How expanded and vitalized do you feel in these four areas? So, again, the intention of why you're here and how you are at this present moment. And that's going to carry us now into the context and application that we're going to work with today. And you're always welcome to put that in the chat if you enjoy sharing and engaging. And most importantly, it's for your own self awareness. So, what we worked with last time is this concept of growing our garden of well being. And we know that we love the flowers, they're beautiful and they're fragrant. And we want to often in our expansion model have more of that good. And our expansion may often be our goals and visions. And at the same time, that's also balanced by what data or information or programming we've had in our life, what traumas, little traumas, big traumas have happened, or we might call the weeds that are sort of encroaching in on the beauty that we're wanting to create in our life. And of course, all of this is based on the foundation or the landscape or the soil. So right now we're working at this foundational level, and this will then begin to give us the resilience to grow our garden of well-being. So I love this picture, and as how we're going to do it, we're going to continue to grow and reset healthy brains, because our brains are the processors, and the experience, the lived experience that the body has, the brain then takes that information and really facilitates our perceptions, our beliefs, our ideology, the applications of our values, and allows us to achieve our goals. So let's put this in a slightly different context. So we've got this foundational level, which is what we're going to work with today. And I put it in this soothing, safe, calm, cared for, nurtured, and connected orientation. If we come over here, maybe we showed up on today's call because we were more in this goals and visions. You know, we've got a drive to pursue something, we're striving for something, we have achievements that we want in our life. And achievements can be physical health, could be emotional health, mental health. It could be accomplishments in our career, relational, interpersonal. And then another way to look at sort of the trauma and the data and the programming is this part that maybe can be orientated to threats, right? Anxiety, anger, a stuck state where we feel like we're not able to move forward, or even self criticism. And I want to go over a little bit. Last time we talked about the brain has a negativity bias, and that's for survival. And that's really can be over in this threat section. So let's just take and look at this for a review this slide, right? So many of us in this last year have had unexpecteds, right? Sometimes unexpecteds are great, but a lot of our unexpecteds have caught us off guard, right? They've come out of left field and they've left us feeling overwhelmed, right? Our brain, our neurotransmitters, our whole neural network doesn't know what to do with this. That negativity bias is always running for survival. And then we can be experiencing trauma. And trauma really is when our circuit board has experienced more than it can process, digest, and integrate at any given point in time. So there can be little traumas and big traumas. So what we do know is that when brains stay in a negativity bias, they're suspicious and untrusting. They tend to be negative and pessimistic. There's addictive behaviors to try to neuroregulate and bioregulate our sense of well-being, our coping skills. We can be self-sabotaging. We can even be sabotaging of others. Our brains often are scattered and distracted. We've got it like someone pulled our plug, right? We're demotivated, we're drained of energy, self-critical, judgmental of others and ourselves, and emotionally cut off. So again, we're orienting towards brain health and how can we work with this negativity bias, and whether we've been experiencing this personally, maybe those around us have, family members, coworkers, neighbors, and kind of the world at large. So the good news is there's lots of ways we can support our neural network. So just a simple orientation about our personal neurobiology. So we're here first and foremost to survive. And then, of course, probably a lot of us are on this call because we would like to thrive. And we need to understand the basic functions of our human brain that both support our survival and also how to thrive. And so, you know me, I'm a little brainiac. I love to have brains and take a look at and really understand what we're marinating in and how it's impacting us. So a lot of us come here because we intellectually, prefrontal cortex decided we wanted to show up on this call, and how can I continue to resource myself? So we had a thought that sounded good and made sense, right? It's a logical part of us. However, when we have an experience that triggers us emotionally, whether it's a positive or a negative emotion, this limbic brain takes over and it will actually shut off this prefrontal cortex. And we'll talk more about this on future calls. But when we're feeling in a negativity bias or we're feeling any kind of threat, it's very hard for us to achieve our goals, because achieving our goals comes from prefrontal cortex. And when we're feeling any threat, this limbic brain takes over for our survival. And we want to look at how we can have this whole healthy brain and begin to thrive in the way that we would like. So, another important piece to remember is that we have mirror neurons, and mirror neurons are a type of brain cell that responds when we perform an action. We're going to learn a new action today, and when we witness others perform that action. So, the power of our company, who we're around, the things we watch, the things we read are impacting us through this neural network of mirror neurons, and they actually work immediately. So, when we watch things, our brain immediately sees ourselves doing that activity. So, initiating the activity ourselves, watching others do it, and then applying it in our life happens both consciously and unconsciously. And it goes right into our brain. So, I want to just have us remember the power of the company we keep and what we're feeding our brains. And as you know, I'm a coach for the Amen Clinics, Dr. Amen, and he always says that our brains are always listening. So, paying attention to where our thoughts are and the company we're keeping is important. So today we're going to focus on this soothing and nurturing our soil, right? Because ultimately, we're always scanning for threat, right? We're always scanning for our safety and our survival. And that happens before we actually have any bandwidth to achieve our goals, okay? So when we have a soothing, helpful, caring orientation, we feel warmth, loving, caring, and sharing, right? There's nurturing, supportive, recharging, regenerative, restorative, healing, encouraging, and forgiving. And what I've really loved is I've studied more about the brain, and I've had my brain scanned at the Amen Clinic to take care of myself, is to understand biochemistry that's going on in the brain. Because actually, our biochemistry is what's driving. It's both our brain waves and our biochemistry is what's driving our perceptions, our feelings, our emotions, our interpersonal relationships, and our ability to achieve our goals. So, when we're soothing our nervous system, and we talked about the vagus nerve last week, and we're going to do a review on that, it creates oxytocin. And oxytocin is that feeling of connection and trust of ourselves and with others. And then serotonin give us that feeling of we're satisfied. There's that like, you is well, right? Our nervous system is soothed. And so the motivation of this system in our brain and our neural network is to rest and digest. And I'm just cracking up. My cat is at the door wanting to come in and cuddle with his mom. So give me just a moment. I'm going to let him in because otherwise he's going to keep scratching at the door. Okay, so the motivation with the rest and digest is to connect with the needs that we have and also be able to connect with the needs of others. It's like our neural network is resilient, it's cared for, it's soothed, and then we can actually be in community with our family, our friends, our coworkers, and we can manage the stressors in our life skillfully. And most importantly, our brains and nervous system know that we feel safe. So let's jump into ways to do this. So last week I talked about the power of the vagus nerve. And so just a little review. The vagus nerve is actually a bundle of nerves from the brainstem, right? So that comes out right here at the base of the brain, right from the brainstem. And it goes all the way to the pelvic floor. And it's also known both as the wandering nerve because it goes through so many parts of the body, but it's also the wonder nerve because it's crucial role in our well-being, which is what we're cultivating, and our overall health. As these nerve fibers are stimulated, the body relaxes and we're benefited in many ways. So, the vagus nerve is really crucial in regulating the autonomic nervous system. We have that sympathetic where we get charged and busy and active and can be anxious and afraid. And the parasympathetic is what relaxes us. When we get anxious in that negativity bias and overwhelmed or afraid, it turns the vagus nerve off. So we actually need to activate it for it to work its magic. And it also plays a huge role in our body-mind connection. So let's review the way that we worked with the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve coming here out of the base of the brain stem comes and wraps, it's a 10th cranial nerve, comes into the head, through the neck, and down to our organs. So last time I talked about one way we can activate this nerve is stroking down our necks. So remember mirror neurons, when we do it, we get the benefit of it. And when we watch someone else do it, and even if you do this around your family or friends, their mirror neurons are going to start matching the benefit of what this vagus nerve has to offer. And we can also add a little bit of humming. Can be a song, it can be a tone, because the vibration also activates the vagus nerve. So this is a review from last week. Let's review another way to activate the vagus nerve, because it's the 10th cranial nerve and it comes in here to the ear. So we can rub or tap behind our ears. So let's go ahead and do that together. And pick the pace and pressure that's good. So remember, it's more the stimulation than trying to put pressure on any fascial tissues or muscles, right? You can also pull on the ears gently all the way around and through. And this is extending and opening up the fascia, but most importantly, it's stimulating the nerve. So go ahead and give yourself this opportunity to activate your vagus nerve. Now, the things we're going to look for that lets us know this vagus nerve is coming online is we might have a yawn, we might hear a tummy gurgle, a swallow, a deeper exhale. You can try to explore both ears. You might get a greater response from one ear or the other. And then we can also rest our finger with fingernail forward into the ear canal and gently push back against that ridge. Again, this activates the vagus nerve. This is a review from last week, and then we're going to apply a new application. And then you can float up over that first ridge into the first indent, the simba, and gently massage. So again, when we're thinking about taking care of our neural garden and our garden of well-being, we need to bring this vagus nerve online, create a relaxation response, and allow some bioregulation, biobalancing to be happening between the hemispheres of the brain, between the whole vagus nerve, because it goes all the way down into the gut. Many of us know that the brain has the belly has a brain, our brain up in our head, they're communicating all the time, as well as the neuroprocessors in the heart, right? So the more we're in this self-soothing relaxation response, it brings that prefrontal cortex online and calms the anxiety and negativity bias in the limbic brain. So now we're moving on to something that I really love. I'm a practitioner of havening, which is research-based of how to calm and address trauma that's stored in this limbic emotional brain that's been threatened. So trauma gets encoded in the amygdala, and all healing happens in the amygdala. Healing does not happen in the prefrontal cortex. It happens in the emotional brain. So we're doing a bottom-up approach through the brainstem into the limbic brain. And then when this is balanced and calibrated, then the prefrontal cortex, the executive function, can come on board and they can work together. So I've been doing, as many of you know, hands-on body work for over 30 years. And I really understand now more what's happening within the biochemistry of the brain and the neural connections that are important for physical, emotional, mental well-being and our ability to move forward and create outcomes in our life. So the psychosensory touch that we're going to use is very simple. We're stroking from the shoulders down to the elbows. And so shoulders down to the elbows, right? So it's a slow, moderate pace. I always think about this of calming the ruffled feathers. So stroking down slowly, So as we do this, I just want you to notice that it might have a similar response as vagus nerve activation, right? So EEGs have been put on people's head, and these 3 points actually create delta waves, and delta waves tell our brains that we're safe. The second one is stroking across the forehead and the cheeks, the forehead and the cheeks, the forehead and the cheeks. And then the last one is like a circular motion with your palms. Now, we're all unique vibratory beings. We all have interesting desires for touch and different pressure and pacing. So I'd like you to take a moment and explore which one of these or which two of these gives you that all is well sensation, right? Just letting that support your nervous system, calm that limbic brain, calming the amygdala. And when we're in a calm, present state of awareness, we're our most intelligent, we're our most creative, we're our most intuitive, right? We're fully connected with our fully highly dimensional, creative, amazing selves, right? So exploring those. Now, I've given you vagus nerve activation. I've given you psychosensory touch. So, how could we use this in a direct application that really grows our brain and resets our brain and also lets us keep developing and nurturing the soil of our well being? So, this is how we're going to do it today. So I love mind mapping, brain mapping, and this is an example of what I'd like you to explore. So I want you to pick a positive experience or memory, and I have some here for you to look at. So I have a positive experience or memory of a beach walk. And then I want you to make a note to yourself of how that experience made you feel, because it's actually the feelings we remember. They get encoded in our nervous system. The limbic brain is emotional, so it really has both the sensory somatic feeling in the body, but also how it made us feel, right? What type of experience we had. So I want you to write down a couple of experiences or memories, how it made you feel, and potentially maybe a belief that came from that, like, wow, life is good, right? So when I was on that beach walk and it was expansive, I'm like, wow, life is good, right? So, and I'm going to invite you to take this exercise with you after our time together. So we've done vagus nerve activation, right? We've touched into psychosensory, calming the limbic brain. And now we're doing what Rick Hansen is we're amplifying, talks about Dr. Rick Hansen, amplifying the good, right? So we're offsetting the negativity bias with really enhancing the good. So I want you to write down a couple of experiences or memories, how it made you feel. Okay, now we're going to take this a step further so you can see how we can apply this in our self regulation. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to focus on that beach walk. I'm going to see it in my mind, right? I'm going to see myself on that beach walk. I'm going to feel that expansion. I'm going to see the beautiful water, the sparkling light. I'm going to feel the breeze. And I'm going to start doing psychosensory touch. So while I focus on that memory or that experience and how it made me feel, I'm going to say, wow, what did I love about how it looked? What did I love about the sounds? How did it feel in my body? How was that? And what did I say to myself when I was on that beach walk? And so I'm going to be applying psychosensory touch, the arms, the face, the palms, as I focus on that positivity, right? Really drinking in the good. And you can also do your vagus nerve stimulation. You can rub behind your ears while you focus on that positivity. You can stroke down your neck and you can stretch through your ears, right? Use those points in the ear canal or the simba. So focusing on your experience, a memory. How did it make you feel? And now we're actually kind of biohacking your brain and nervous system through psychosensory touch and nervous system stimulation, right, of that vagus nerve, bringing on that parasympathetic, and we're balancing the negativity bias, and we're growing that garden, and we're enhancing the soil of well-being. And sometimes humming is fun. You might notice, like if I think about walking on that beach, there might be a melody or a song or a tone that comes to mind, right? So if you've tried one experience, I want you to just shift over to another. Like I've got here a shared sunset. I'm going to focus on that shared sunset, what I loved about how it looked, how it made me feel. Was there any sound at that time? And I'm anchoring it in. Like in NLP, I teach at Neuro Linguistic Programming, and we talk about creating resource anchors or anchoring things in. We're using psychosensory touch and vagus nerve stimulation to anchor this into our nervous system and to continue to create resilience right within our whole being, right? So explore a couple of those. And I'm going to move to the next slide, because now I want you to start to go, oh my gosh, how am I feeling? What are my thoughts and what are my beliefs about my life right now? How are they different? Because we just biohacked, right? Psychosensory hacked you into a state of well being, right? We're shifting your biochemistry, the oxytocin, the serotonin. We're down regulating the cortisol, the stress hormones, and increasing that sense of well being. So just take a moment and say, wow, how am I feeling different? Come back into your check in. That's why before and afters are super fun. Wow, how's my life force energy? How is my spirit now after activating my vagus nerve, calming my limbic brain with some psychosensory, focusing on the good, anchoring that into my nervous system, right, through the psychosensory touch? How's my mental state? How is it different now? How are my emotions? How does my physical body actually feel? And we did this for not even 10 minutes, right? So, in an instant, really, through vagus nerve stimulation, psychosensory touch, focusing on a positive experience, what did it look like, feel like, sound like? How did it make you feel, right? That's what we come away with in our life experience. So, if we end with a what if we value and care for ourselves every day in every way, right? What if we grow our capacity for good to balance out the natural negativity bias and the hormones and the biochemistry of cortisol with, right, growing our capacity for good, more oxytocin, more serotonin, connection with ourselves and each others, right? A sense of well being, right? A sense of being satisfied and an life is good. So, this is one of my beloved mentors, Harry Pickens. He's a musician, and he wrote this: I choose to choose the me I'll be. I sculpt my own neurology. I choose to bring the best of me to all I do and all I see. And so these are great accolades, but we have to also know how to use the techniques that sculpt the neurology, right? So choosing is agency, and we also need to have the skill set to do it. So I'm always available if you want one on one work on how to take this deeper into aspects of your life. And more importantly, our next call is May 25th. And I look forward to seeing any and all of you there. Feel free to share the link of these times together with anyone that you feel could benefit from it. And so that's our 30 minutes. And I would like to be present with you and ask if you've got any questions, reflections, anything you'd like to share. And I'm happy to stay on the line with you. And so my invitation is to continue to do vagus nerve activation every day, right? All the time. I was with the client the other day and he started biting his nails, and I just said, "Hey, could we pause for a moment? And are you aware that you're biting your nails?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, I am." And he's like, "I'm feeling a little anxious." And I said, "Okay, well, I know you know how to do the vagus nerve activation with your ears, rubbing behind your ears." So he shifted to rubbing behind his ears and he goes, "Oh, I just felt my nervous system like down regulate." And that feeling in my stomach of anxiety shifted, right? And I don't feel the need to bite my nails. And so a lot of times, particularly in the somatic world, when someone says they're anxious, we ask them how they know they're anxious. And they say they know they're anxious because they've got heart palpitations or their tummy feels kind of nervous. And so we actually have a neurological, physiological response first, and then we attach a label to it like anxious, and then we give that meaning. So when I helped that client neuroregulate this physiological, neurological experience he was having, then this experience or label and what it meant shifted, right? So he dropped into a more neuroregulated space. So I want to offer you that there's big power in those simple techniques of activating the vagus nerve and the psychosensory touch. Yeah. Yes, Wendy. Yeah.
It was an interesting exercise for me in that when you asked us to remember something wonderful that we had experienced, I was having a hard time doing that. And then when I started doing the procedures, all of a sudden I started remembering those times. So thank you. That was lovely.
Isn't that fascinating, right? That negativity bias or paying attention to the challenges or what's not working or what we don't like helps us survive, but it also disconnects us from like the beautiful, right? The beauty in life, in ourselves and each other. And you're so right, Wendy, when we start doing that neuro reset, right? Brain reset, neuroregulation, then we do tap into the sweetness of life, right? The beauty, the music, the majesty of all that's good. And that the negativity bias will always be there because it helps us move forward. It gives us motivation for change. It keeps us safe. But wasn't it fun to go from gray to more technicolor, right?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's a really simple thing, right? And so I love this because I'm always the witness of me. Like, how am I? What's my perception? And I know it's based on my neuroregulation, right? My self regulation. So I use this stuff all the time. If I need driving on the freeway, standing in line at the store, anticipating something, because I want to make sure that I'm managing and caring for my nervous system, because we know wires that get frazzled finally burn out, and they can get broken. And our nervous system is like wires that are really getting frazzled, right? So how do we soothe those ruffled feathers to really create strength and more of a flow state? So when we get a little frazzled, we can bring it into a harmony, right? A flow. So and really go, wow, yeah, life is good in spite of the things that we don't have control over. Yeah. So I love that, hearing that, like, oh my God, this just made me realize that it's all okay. I'm going to be fine. Awesome. Again, you're welcome to pass on this information to anyone that you think could benefit. And also on my website under gratitude gifts is the link for these calls, if you're looking for that link again. Yeah, well, thank you so much. And again, our next time together is on the 25th, and we'll continue to keep exploring and building upon this. And I've got so many good things lined up to share. So namaste. Thank you.
Thank
Blessings.
you, Sharon.
Okay. See you soon.
Take
Thank
care.